Hey guys, this is Tiggs, and today I'm going to recreate my oldest Minecraft base. This is the Enderbase, which I will be redesigning. I started building it shortly after Creative Mode came out for the Legacy Console Edition, so sometime in 2012, and it was abandoned before the start of 2013. So where do we start with rebuilding? Let's break it down to its design concepts. These elements include mostly rectangles and squares, a big bedrock wall, a wing that I never finished building, focus on practicality, mixing in stuff like this mob farm and crop farms to be self-sustaining, and a mixture of blocks, colors, textures, and rooms. I liked the idea of repurposing the wall as a structural element, so I used the underlying structure to create a dramatic shape or motion that the rest of the base will be built around. I called it the Enderbase because the idea was that you would have to use an ender pearl to get into it. Elytra renders this obsolete, of course, but whatever. The first thing I did was figure out our palette. I wanted it to feel busy and nostalgic, so I ended up with stone brick, obsidian, and all the blocks 10-year-old me would have found cool. These blocks are for the rooms themselves. For the underlying structure, I picked out additional blackstone and deep slate to create a gradient for the quote-unquote body. I used Axiom's Gradient Helper tool to find some blocks for a smooth transition. Axiom is a building mod that I used throughout this video as an excuse to learn it, so you'll see me getting used to these tools as I work on the build. But anyway, these dark blocks will replace the bedrock that I used way back when. Next, I had to figure out the approximate size and shape I was aiming for, so I started learning how to use Axiom to create a spinal column to work from. It's difficult to decide exactly how big I want this to be. I guess I could just make another one, like, over here. I guess I'll start building around this one just because it'll give me more room to play with. And ignore that one. The next step was to create all the spikes and bulk from the concept art, which was a trial and error process. I ended up trying a few different things, some of which did not work. I didn't even use the line tool at first, I just built stacks of blocks towards me with the infinite reach function. Then I used the rock painter tool to bulk them out, and then I used my fist to shape them into spikes, which was not a very efficient process. Later I figured out a much better way of doing this, but we'll get to that in a bit. I made spikes all the way along the spine. Next, I outlined the rooms themselves to get an idea of the silhouette before putting the wings on. I do want it to be, like, out to this side. I used netherrack for the temporary outlines, which is an old habit of mine, and I listened to overly loud music. With the outline created, I decided the surface of spikes and rooms would be difficult to attach wings to, so they'll be floating instead, unattached. I angel placed some blocks as a basis for the curves, then used the line tool to make them a reality. I initially imagined the wings as white to match the original, but at this scale, that would probably look a little boring, so I incorporated a gradient of white to gold to keep things from looking too plain, using the Gradient Helper once again. I hadn't even gotten into the paint tools yet, so I was just using the replace mode function for this. The light colors on the wings made an interesting contrast with the dark, evil colors of the base structure. It's sort of giving a half-demon, half-angel deviant art OC, which is the perfect energy for this sort of thing. 10-year-old me would be delighted. That's pretty cool. I like that. I filled out the rest of the wing with abuse of the line tool, and manual placement to fill in the gaps. I used replace mode again, but had to manually turn the bone block so that the proper side was showing instead of the dark underside. Anyway, I think the wings turned out pretty cool. I do tweak them a bit as I work on the rest of the base, like fixing the backside of them, but they're mostly done as is, and I'm quite happy with the shapes. I outlined a few more rooms with netherrack. then moved on to bulking out the structure. This is that inefficient process I was talking about, by painstakingly using the rock tool to turn these lines into blobs that I have to turn into spikes by hand later on. I also remember the line tool exists around this point, and I remember to record with flashback too. And failed miserably to use the gradient painter because I did not look at the tutorial first. And instead of looking at the tutorial, I instead just hopped in with the noise painter and threw a mess of blocks around to figure out later. I filled the rooms with diamond to help maintain my sense of volume while continuing to mess with the structures around and beneath them. I kept sculpting and reshaping the structure in that slow, methodical manner. I worked on terrain with the rock tool, paintbrush, and noise painter to blend it into the ground a little bit. I also put netherrack in the ground and set it on fire, in a nod to the burning building under the original base. I also experimented with light levels on the wings to make them glow at night, which looked cool, so I'm glad I did that. Then came a breakthrough, the spike generator tool, a script brush made by Willatronics, which let me just easily create the structures I had been picturing all along, with so much less effort. I used the cluster function of the spike generator a ton after this. I cleaned up some of what I had done before, and ended up with an awesome, spiky structure just like what I had envisioned. After failing with the gradient painter again, I returned to the old faithful masking and noise painter combo. Meaning I could only paint the textured blocks onto the kind of blocks I had selected, which was already the ones used in the gradient, so I just put them all in the mask tool. It's a whole thing. Go watch a tutorial. It's awesome. And now it's room time. I got rid of all the diamond blocks. I'm gonna do it lazy style. How big even is this? Okay, perfect. And then I had to clear out whatever spikes had intersected them. For the first floor room, I picked out some mangrove oak and glowstone, trying to tap into that updated nostalgia feeling. From here on out, I don't use many Axiom tools except fast placing and infinite reach, so it's back to old school building for the most part. Back in the day, I liked the idea of tunnels through the rock made cozy, with warm lighting and encased in wood. The original Enderbase had multiple entrances to many of its rooms, and I wanted to imitate that, with a twisting path through the base and two main routes that meet in a room further up. To the right, I made a melon farm. I found out when making this time-lapse that prismarine apparently changes color over time, which I never noticed, and is kind of strange. It's an interesting idea for a block, but now that I'm aware of it, I'm not sure that I actually like it. The purple phase just looks strange to me. Then off to the left is our mob farm room, with an updated brick palette. And by mob farm, I mean skeleton spawner in a dark room because I couldn't be bothered to build an actual mob farm. This room is meant to be cozy, with multiple levels for beds and living space / lounging space, and I think it turned out pretty cute. The stone brick room is dedicated to fishing, with some general nature stuff included as well. When I made bases as a kid, they were generally designed with the understanding that whoever occupied them would never leave, so this is all the nature a person living in this base might ever expect to see again. A charming little dystopia, eh? I used noise brush once again on the outside for texture. The obsidian square is our potion room. I think I got a little overzealous with the noise painter at this point, so I scattered a bunch of colorful blocks all over the obsidian to make a saturated, obnoxiously colorful piece of the base. I can't help but harbor some special affection for the colorful gemstone blocks, though we must temper this if we are to build in the modern day. I love that you can see the outline on the ground of all of the places that I missed while terraforming. Up here is more farming, always room for more crops unless you're a Minecraft speedrunner. I've always liked farming carrots because you don't have to craft them or cook them, and that suits my laziness. I went a bit wild with the colors here, just saturation all the way. The orange room is the planning room, with the map and preparing for imaginary battle. With cake, of course. I wanted the purple and white pavilion to feel sort of ethereal, maybe elven, and then above is meant to convey a laboratory feel. The purple smear was the noise painter again. I might have a problem. I covered the underside with slab so it wouldn't show from below. Hey, if you've made it this far, consider subscribing, leaving a like, or sharing this video with a friend. It really helps as a tiny channel. Please enjoy the rest of the video. Then, since I was almost done, I asked some friends for feedback and finished building it in the voice chat, which went about how you would expect. There's like lava, lighting, and stuff. And then in there is a skeleton spawner. And I didn't want to...
Oh my god, I was like, what kind of freak shit is this?
Put a pole in there.
They stick to your head and they suckle on your head, on your bald head, on all the bald scientists' heads.
I need to, like, fix this staircase.
This is not OSHA approved.
When the building was done, I tried out a bunch of shaders at different times of day to see what would make things look best. Eventually, I defaulted back to complimentary reimagined for the glamour shoot. But hey, now that it's done, let's take a tour and a good look at her.